How are you doing, Bruins fans? Welcome into another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated. I'm your host, Tom Cavanaugh. Today is Monday, November 18th. Sunday, November 17th. We're getting you a little bit of a recap of this Bruins, a little cleanup from the Bruins loss on Saturday, falling to the Washington Huskies, 31-19. Going to talk about some of their issues and what's to come in the final couple games for this team to become bowl eligible. Just 2 wins away with 2 games to play. It's crunch time for UCLA football. You can follow myself, Tom Cavanaugh, at TCav30 on Twitter/X. Follow our insider pages on Facebook and on Twitter/X at UCLA Insider on SI. And then just type in your search bar UCLA Bruins on Sports Illustrated, and you'll be able to find all of our content from all of our great writers. We're posting dozens of stories a day, covering both football and basketball. Today, it's going to be a football-based pod, and we're just going to kick it off, cleaning up a few things. We talked a lot yesterday about the lack of the run game, poor execution when trying to capitalize in big chances for the Bruins. They just weren't really able to get anything going consistently on offense. They had 2 interceptions to lead off the second half, only were able to get 3 points out of it, a turnover on a fumble from one of their receivers, Jack Peterson, that would kill one of the drives, and then Mateen Bagani was able to get a 3 as well. But it was just a little bit too little too late. The Huskies turned it on in the second half. Damon Williams Jr., as we mentioned a lot yesterday as well, he was fantastic, backing up Will Rogers, who struggled early in the third quarter. But when you look at this team, the one glaring thing besides the play on the field, when the ball is snapped, you can only do so much. Obviously, you'd like to be better at running the football, getting less pressure on Garbers. Ethan Garbers was sacked 6 times in the ball game. You'd love for those things to go the right way, but one thing that you can really control is the penalties pre and post snap. So when you look at this Bruins team, the one thing that they can control, obviously you'd like for them to be successful in the run game, giving Ethan Garbers, the quarterback, more time, considering he was sacked 6 times. All the stuff on the field in play, you can only hope for the best. But the things that you can control the most are those pre- and post-snap penalties. Over the last 5 games for the Bruins, they have totaled at least 9 penalties in each of their last 5, dating back to the Minnesota game. So this team has been pretty undisciplined when it comes to those penalties. Now, there's some pass interferences here and there that, are just the competition and the plays that happen, but a ton of false starts in this game against Washington, several. And they were on 1st and 10, backing them up to a 1st and 15, maybe a second and short, a second and mid, third and mid. They were backing up to be second and long, third and long situations. That's what led the Bruins to have not a lot of success offensively. They weren't able to maintain drives. They were dominated in time of possession, and it was a big reason for it were those false start penalties. And then you can also add on a huge roughing the passer penalty. Will Rogers was in the red zone trying to score a touchdown for the Huskies, throws an interception into the end zone, picked off by the Bruins. That interception was negated because of a roughing the passer call that came a little bit after Rogers threw the ball. 15-yard penalty puts the Huskies at 1st and goal, and they would score a touchdown just a few plays later. And that has kind of been the story the last couple of games. You go back to the Nebraska game. There was a 3rd and 10, a big play. They get the stop. They're going to 4th down, going to get the ball back on a punt. Not so fast. There's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on the field. There were 2 or 3 unsportsmanlike conducts in both the Nebraska game and the Rutgers game. So this Bruins team right now can be undisciplined at times. They're racking up the penalties, averaging 9 in every game. They had 10 against Minnesota weeks ago. So that's something that this team really needs to clean up, because whatever happens, the chips will fall as they may when it comes to running the football, your offensive and defensive success. But the thing that you can control the very most is those penalties, especially pre-snap. And now I'll give a little bit of leeway because there were several backup offensive linemen in the ball game for the Bruins, but still no excuse. You got to be on the same page as the rest of your own line and your quarterback calling the snap count. So that's one thing. Besides everything on the field that the Bruins struggled to do, that was the glaring issue for them. Now, when you look at the rest of the schedule for UCLA, they have USC in the Crosstown Showdown at the Rose Bowl next week, and then they're going to finish at home, once again playing Fresno State, a team that beat them the last time they met in 2021. Fresno State's not a team to sneeze at whatsoever. We'll get to them in a minute, but we'll start with USC. Trojans currently 5-5. They got a big 8-point win over Nebraska earlier on Saturday evening. And they're looking a little better, I guess. I mean, when you look at the Trojans to start the year, they beat LSU, knocked off one of the top teams in the country. Now LSU starting to look a little less significant considering they just lost to Florida on Saturday night. But USC, I mean, they lost to Michigan, they lost to Washington. They were 4-5 going into that Nebraska game. They had several losses on their sheet that at the beginning of the year you would have chalked up as wins. And USC over the last couple of days have lost several recruits. They lost a 4-star edge rusher. They lost a 3-star cornerback. And right now, the 5-star out of Georgia, one of the best players in the country, quarterback Julian Lewis from Carrollton High School down there in Georgia, he might be swinging to the Colorado Buffaloes. So I think that kind of plays into what's happening with USC just this year. Head coach Lincoln Riley, he's trying to bring this program back, trying to stack up those recruits and bring in a new program. But right now with quarterback Miller Moss, who got off to a hot start to the year, was an early Heisman candidate, just has not shown enough to bring this USC team into the forefront as one of the national contenders. And they're at the bottom of the Big Ten currently. UCLA with one more win in the Big Ten than the Trojans do this season. So that's going to be a huge game to look at. And then you move on to Fresno State. Very good program as well. We're going to break those games down as the weeks go on. But it's do or die time right now for UCLA. And the reason being is they're 4-6. If they want to make a bowl game, they have to finish 6-6, which means they have to win out and take 5 of their last 6 games after starting the season 1-5. You can beat this USC team. We've seen other teams that are lesser than the Bruins take them down this year. You get some quarterback pressure on Miller Moss. You're able to sling the rock against the bad defense. I think this Bruins team could gut out a win in that in-state rivalry against their biggest rival, really. I mean, that's going to be the biggest game on the schedule for both of those teams, considering the seasons they're having. And then you get done with that game, you move on to Fresno State, and still another tough one. You cannot take Fresno State lightly. The Bulldogs are a good team. They're currently 5-5 right now in the Mountain West Conference. And if it comes down to it and the Bruins beat USC, they're 5-6, they're going to have a chance to win that ball game and move on and become a bowl-eligible team. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to make a bowl game. It just makes them eligible. But still, starting 1-5 and going 5-1 in your last 6 games, that's impressive stuff for first-year head coach Deshaun Foster, bringing in offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and a whole bunch of new staff members. You got to tip your cap to the program if they're able to really pull that off, finish 6-6, and at the beginning of the year, this Bruins team looked like they were headed for several years of down football, just unsuccessful, losing record programs or teams, I guess I should say. That doesn't look to be the case anymore. I know you have a senior quarterback in Ethan Garbers who's going to finish out his college career this season. You got a bunch of other veterans. Thankfully, junior linebacker Carson Schlesinger still has another year to play. But you're going to lose a lot of guys this year. So being able to re-up that and come back the next couple of years and be a competitive team in the Big Ten, that's major. So it's really, really crucial for the Bruins because of that loss to Washington to be able to win out the rest of the year and get into a bowl game. They could be playing sometime near Christmas. So that's going to do it for us here on the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. Once again, follow myself, Tom Cavanaugh, at TCAV30 on Twitter/X. The rest of the week, we're going to be kind of prepping for this USC game. Going to take maybe one more day to look at this Huskies game and a few other things that they can correct moving into next week. But it's all about the Crosstown Showdown this week. Cannot wait for the Trojans and Bruins to stack up at the Rose Bowl this Saturday night. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow on the UCLA Bruins Insider Pod.